Calling to order the February 18th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting. We usually start off with public comments, but we have a little cleanup on meeting dates that I'd like to get done first, and then we can get started with the body of the meeting. Betsy, can you run us through that?
I gave you my calendar. Okay, it was suggested to move the March regular Quorum Court meeting date because it falls in the middle of spring break and a lot of people are out of town. The proposed new date is Tuesday, March 31st. That way we leave all of the other meetings intact. April is one of those months where the regular meeting date fell only 2 days after the regular Committee of the Whole. So what we normally do is back Quorum Court up 1 week, so that proposed date is April 30th, and what we need is a motion for those two changes to be placed on next week's Quorum Court agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second on the floor. Any discussion? Yes.
What meeting is moving to March 30?
31st, Quorum Court.
Oh, okay.
It's a Tuesday.
Okay.
It feels strange, but
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, like sign. Passes. Okay, before we get started in the public comments, I would first like to ask you if you have your cell phone, especially if it's on some kind of raucous tone, to put it on vibrate, so that you don't waste time during the meeting. Also, the meeting is going to be recorded and available. Is it live streaming?
it's not live, but the tape goes on the website tomorrow.
Okay, the tape will be on the website tomorrow for anybody that wishes to view it. When you reach the podium, there's a sign-in sheet, and we will give you time to sign your name. Please print it legibly so that Betsy can read it, and then state your name and address before going into what you have to say. I have the ground rules for the meeting up there, but for the people that are out in the hall and can't get close enough to read it, I'll go over it again. Due to the large number of people wishing to speak and to allow everyone time to express their opinion, a strict 3-minute per person time limit will be enforced. Each speaker will be notified when they have 1 minute left and 30 seconds left. Please arrange your comments to accommodate this time allotment. Everyone will be allowed to speak before this body begins discussion of the agenda items and also at the conclusion of this meeting. If the person in front of you expressed what you had intended to say, or you agree with what they said, you obviously don't have to spend your entire 3 minutes up here rehashing what they just said. But that's completely up to you. We're not going to say one thing or the other. I hope we all agree that everybody here has their First Amendment right to express their opinion. Be respectful of this right, and please refrain from any cheers, boos, clapping, or any other interruptions or disruptions. Please refrain from using profanity or engaging in personal attacks on any other speaker in attendance. Anyone that does not respect these ground rules will be warned, and if the behavior continues, will be escorted from the meeting. Since this meeting agenda is devoted to discussion of the Bill of Rights, ordinances, and or other resolutions, public comments will only be heard at the beginning and end of this meeting. Justices may not respond to any public comments, so don't call any justices out to respond because they won't be able to. And most importantly, the chair reserves the right to suspend public comments if the above ground rules are not respected. So everybody do this orderly and civilly, and this will work just fine. So that being said, who would be the first, like to be the first to speak? I think you got up first, so as I said, everyone will get a chance. So don't need to crowd in line.
You do know that you're being called Tom Allen today.
Oh, no. I guess I could be married. Yeah, especially since he isn't here and I can talk about it. Okay. So let us know when ready for your time again.
So my name is Mike Clagius. I'm Landers Road, Rogers, Arkansas. And I'm talking again, obviously, in support of the ordinance, and an ordinance rather than a resolution, because an ordinance has meaning, whereas a resolution is just kind of words to hide behind. I'd like to see the Quorum Court do something meaningful in doing what they can to protect our rights. And I realize that the county Quorum Court, your power is pretty much limited just to the county. You are, in fact, you don't have sovereign authority over the state or the federal government. So, but you do have authority over the county. That is something that the Constitution of Arkansas grants you. You do have the authority to regulate what goes on in the county, to pass laws for the county. And that's what this ordinance does. This ordinance does not defy state law. It doesn't require anybody in the county to try and defy state law or even to protect the citizens against bad state laws. All it does is say that the county officials and the county tax dollars and the county employees cannot participate in violating our constitutional rights. And it's not limited to just the second, although that is the prime gist of it. But most of the things, when they come after your Second Amendment rights, they're also violating your Fourth and they're violating your Fifth to do that. And so this protects that as well. And it's something that I think we can all get behind. I'm not sure how people can say, well, no, we don't want to support the Constitution. Everybody has to take an oath when they're elected to office that says you will support the Constitution. So I've seen what Mr. Rainwater said about this. So, and maybe he was talking about a different ordinance. Maybe he hasn't read this one. But he was speaking past it. Because this is not declaring yourself to be a sovereign county above the state. All it is just like any other ordinance that you would enact, something that you're using to regulate your own county. So, and I would urge that...
1 minute, sir.
Thank you. I would urge you to, even if you do not like some of the words that are in this ordinance, the purpose of today's meeting is for discussion. So, debate amongst yourselves. Maybe things need to be changed a little bit, one word to another, one section deleted, another section added. But stick to an ordinance that will prevent the county from infringing on the rights of others, as we've seen in Virginia, as we've heard our own governor say.
30 seconds, sir.
Rights are being taken away from people. So, and while you can't prevent those rights from being taken away from people, you can keep the county from participating in doing so. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Brad Dry.
Sir, print your name.
Oh, I already did.
Some
Did
of
you?
them are already.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give your name and address.
So I'm from the unincorporated areas near Wheeler, Arkansas. And I'm talking about the Bill of Rights Sanctuary Ordinance that you guys are voting for. You know, the craziness that happens over on the west coast doesn't make it to Arkansas. You know, that's where we have a chance to look at it and decide for ourselves if we're going to stand up. Because give me liberty or give me death, we're not going to put up with what happens over there on the east and west coast. You know, I've had my rights violated. I've had my person interpreted as a threat to other people's safety. You know, I'm not suicidal. I've never committed suicide before. But what this is right here is suicide. It's a suicide of culture, of values, of nation, of honor. And we can't stand up for it. You know, we have to fight back, we have to push back. You know, I can tell you right now, I'm not going to be the person who gets disarmed at the end of the day, not without conflict. You have the right today to vote, to make a vote voice that matters, to divert the possibility for bloodshed in the future. I don't know why it's got to this point. I don't know about all the craziness. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why people, when I go down on Dixon Street, why people were asking me if I'm a danger to myself, my safety, and others. So I started carrying a handgun, openly carrying a handgun. I didn't open carry today because it's a gun-free zone, but I was invited, so this is a rare opportunity that I get to stand up and speak in front of you guys to tell you the truth, because the truth matters. The other day I was disarmed because I was open carrying, and I don't feel like following rules or complying or listening to orders, and I will not lay down my arms. And I'm charged with disorderly and threatening a police officer because I told him that I should not be disarmed, not without fighting back And that's just, we don't need to get to that point. You know, we have the right to not get to that point. We don't need to verify whether or not we're felons or that we're about to commit a felony or what my intentions are and what my purpose is here. My purpose is here to talk to you guys so that you guys don't have to send the Inspector General or the Inquisitor to come after me and get in all of my business. At the end of the day, the point that matters the most is to mind your own business.
1 minute, sir.
And I want you guys to think about that when you vote is, you know, Fugio. What Benjamin Franklin said on the first coin to the Continental Congress of the United States of America in 1787 was mind your own business. Bring that right to bear. And let's all stand up for the principles of our founding fathers, principles of liberty and freedom, because the tree of liberty needs to be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants.
30 seconds, sir.
And so we will not be disarmed, and we will not surrender, and we will not bow down to communist infiltrators. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. I already
Did you
wrote my
write-
name down.
Okay, thank you.
Larry Concan. I live in Bella Vista. I own handguns, both revolvers and semi-automatics. I have a shotgun. I have a rifle. And, you know, I don't think anybody, if they want to have them, they should have them. We live in a democracy. Truly, our democracy is trying to be destroyed right now from our very own president. But in Arkansas, we have a constitution that observes all of our rights, and it clearly states it in our constitution what our rights are. And it goes right along with the federal government. As a democracy, when the majority rules, everybody obeys those rules. If some people want to disobey them and fight and die, I'm perfectly okay with that. But I'm going to go along with the rules. I really feel like this gun sanctuary bill is a big waste of time. And I feel like making a resolution is a waste of time as well. I think that the JPs should all stand up and say, we have a perfectly good state constitution, and as far as this gun sanctuary bill goes, tell them to go pound dirt. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Sorry if I miss you, I'll get to you.
Mark Tucker, I live in Bentonville.
Okay, please state your name.
I'd like to speak against both the resolution and the ordinance.
Speaker, please. The
Sir.
microphone.
Please use the mic. Thank you.
I'd like to speak against both the resolution and the ordinance. I feel like there's already a remedy in place for unconstitutional laws. It's in the Arkansas Constitution, it's in the federal Constitution, and that remedy is the courts. And I don't see how we can say we're following the Constitution when we try to put the county above the state and the federal government. And that's really all I want to say. I don't think this is a good idea.
Thank you. Ma'am, the guy behind you, you're next.
Don Decker, Gateway, Arkansas. With respect to those that spoke before, I think this ordinance is a good idea. One question or one comment I wanted to make is, I think it was Mr. Allen that spoke at the last meeting, said that we wouldn't want to enforce any laws that go against state law or federal law. There's a process theory of nullification. The state is already doing that with marijuana laws. It's federally illegal to possess or sell marijuana. But in the state of Arkansas and in the county of Benton, we're selling it everywhere. So we're already nullifying federal law on marijuana laws. What this ordinance does is if our state was to enact a red flag law, which does violate the Second Amendment, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, several amendments, that would let the county say, no, we're going to nullify that law by not enforcing it. We have I'm an official, I'm alderman in the city of Gateway, and in our oath of office, the same oath you guys take. In our oath, we support the Constitution sorry, I lost my words. We want to support the Constitution and uphold what it says. If our state passes an unconstitutional law, we're duty bound to not enforce that law. And I think this ordinance gives the county some sort of legal standing, maybe not this ordinance the way it's written, but an ordinance along those lines to make this a sanctuary state or a county that would support the United States Constitution over anything the state of Arkansas might do. So I think an ordinance of this type would be a very good thing for this county to do. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, please come forward.
My name is on the list already.
Okay. What is your name? And,
My name is Sheila Gallagher. I live in Rogers.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the members of the Quorum Court. And I want to thank the Libertarian Party for initiating this discussion on the proper functions of government. This is especially important, I think, now when so many government entities seem unable to function at all. I, for one, now know more about libertarians, more about gun issues, more about the importance of the Quorum Court, and it is clear to me that the Quorum Court has no responsibility for Second Amendment issues under the Constitution of the United States or that of Arkansas, as those are outlined in the proposed ordinance that has been presented to you. With no constitutional responsibility, I urge you not to slide into a symbolic gesture. Our political lives are already loaded down with symbols from one side or another that threaten to divide us into tribes. Your vote to support this ordinance, or even the watered-down resolution, would be symbolic. Consider your work done by having this discussion. As the Quorum Court, your work lies not in broad constitutional issues, but in the tangible world of potholes and bridges, ambulances and jails, courthouse buildings, and FEMA damage estimates. You will squander some of your hard-earned public support if you advance this ordinance or the attendant resolution. Last Sunday's Democrat-Gazette presented our choice on the front page in 2 articles side by side. One article described the opening of the Momentary in Bentonville,
1 minute, ma'am.
a space that promises to, quote, enhance the quality of life in this region, end quote. The other article explained the gun sanctuary push. With a lot of effort over the 40 years that I have lived in this area, Northwest Arkansas has become a retail destination, a healthcare destination,
30
a
seconds.
destination for the arts. A gun sanctuary movement is a destination of another sort. Imagine the billboards. You are entering a gun sanctuary. And then ask Harrison, Arkansas, about billboards. I ask you to vote no on the ordinance and the resolution. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's next? Please come forward.
My name is Dustin Craig. I'm from Siloam Springs. Article 2 of the Arkansas Constitution is titled Declaration of Rights. It has 29 sections detailing the rights of citizens. Section 1. All political power is inherent in the people, and government is instituted for their protection, security, and benefit. And they have the right to alter, reform, or abolish the same in such manner as they may think proper. It is our right to alter or reform how our government operates. Our tax dollars are being used to fund the Association of Counties. That association is lobbying against our rights. We have 75 counties in this state. How do we get to a point that the elected get to dictate to the people what rights need to be enforced, or what should or shouldn't be done on behalf of the people? I have read the rainwater response. They propose a resolution, not an ordinance. A resolution is as worthless as the paper it's printed on. An ordinance gives the people the teeth to protect our rights. Also, it's been said that a county is not a sovereign government, but a subset of the state. I absolutely agree. There's nothing in this ordinance that would make the county sovereign, but protect the sovereignty of the people. As I stated first, the people control the government, not the other way around. The only thing sovereign about the Bill of Rights ordinance applies to the government officials not wanting to be held accountable. I've also learned some counties are balking at these ordinances due to fear of losing federal or state funding. Well, I have to say our rights are not for sale. I strongly urge you to vote yes for the ordinance and not a resolution. Let the people have a voice, not a legal team in Little Rock or an association of elected dictate what is best for the people. We seem to have a group of elected pushing back to prevent the rights of the people from being protected, and the people who are pushing back are getting a "how dare you." If there were no unconstitutional laws already or being brought up in legislation, we wouldn't be pushing back. Rainwater also brought up the proposed red flag laws. Governor Asa has said any red flag law that would need would need to protect due process. We already have laws on the books preventing dangerous people, whether mentally unstable or a history of violence, from owning weapons. Red flag laws go above and beyond due process. They violate the First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, Seventh, Eighth, Ninth Amendments, and the 14th Amendment. Tom Allen, who's not here tonight, said last meeting that he believes this might be a waste of time. I've had my property taken from me illegally and against my will with no recourse other than getting a phone call that was supposed to be an apology call. This ordinance would give me and other people of this state the ability to get recourse for rights violations. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who's next?
I signed in earlier. Good evening. My name is Amy Gillespie. I'm from Bella Vista. I come before you today both as a concerned citizen of Benton County and as a volunteer with the Arkansas chapter of Moms Demand Action. And I ask you to not consider any Second Amendment or Bill of Rights, sanctuary ordinance, or resolution. The vast majority of Americans support common sense gun laws that can keep our families safe. Instead of passing dangerous resolutions with no impact on state or local law, our leaders should focus on solutions that can keep our families safe in Arkansas and Benton County. Laws such as background checks on all gun sales and extreme risk protective orders, also known as red flag laws, are supported by the majority of Americans. But these laws are outside the purview of the Benton County Quorum Court. So too is the determination of whether these laws are constitutional. That is a duty that is given to the courts, and in fact, courts across the country have consistently upheld that these laws are constitutional. I understand that many in this body consider themselves ardent supporters, even defenders of the Second Amendment. And you all have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution of Arkansas. The Arkansas Constitution states that a county quorum court cannot suspend or set aside the laws of the state of Arkansas. Therefore, by your own oath and commitment to the Constitution, you cannot decide to just not enforce a law you don't like, especially when the law has been proven to save lives. Honestly, I find this whole discussion to be a waste of our valuable time. The effects of passing such a resolution is to undermine the rule of law. It fosters distrust between law enforcement and communities. It confuses people into thinking that they don't have to follow gun laws. And it deters others from reporting individuals who may hurt themselves or others. I don't think any of us want that for Benton County. Please table this discussion and let it go no further. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, Molly
Have
Dare.
you signed in?
Yes, I signed in earlier.
Thank you.
I feel like it's worth noting that I'm a gun owner and I come from a long line of gun owners. And I know that red flag laws have been brought up here and as a way people have been victimized by them, but I'd like to remind you guys that over 50 women are shot and killed in this country every month by lovers or boyfriends or husbands or exes of all the above. And so in addition to protecting the rights of gun owners, which I hope you will do, I hope you'll also protect the rights of women to live and to maybe protect themselves or draw attention to people who might be a threat to them. And as a gun owner, if I were ever to become a threat, a serious threat to someone, I hope someone would remove them from me as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Mike Lade. I live in Springdale on the Benton County side. No one is above the law. I've probably heard this said 10,000 times in the last month. But isn't it interesting that that phrase almost exclusively is used about others and very rarely about ourselves? He, she, they are not above the law. But the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, we are not above the law. There is a problem, though. What if laws come in conflict with one another? What if laws do not agree? What if a law violates the enumerated rights of a citizen? What do we do with that law? We simply don't enforce it. This ordinance is simply that. The Bill of Rights ordinance is us saying collectively that we, our citizens, our law enforcement, our elected and appointed officials are not above the law. The founders died to give us this law that we so preciously hold. We are all together submitting ourselves to the supreme law of the land of the U.S. Constitution. There's a profound difference between, I resolve to agree with a thing, thus and so, and I ordain a thing to be so. It is important to recognize that difference and to realize the value of an ordinance. We should all resolve to live better lives, be better people, take care of our fellow man, lose a few pounds, exercise a little bit. We should all resolve to do those things.
One minute, sir.
But we should ordain that the Bill of Rights contained for us in the United States Constitution are the law of the land. Not just in an ethereal air of Washington, D.C., but right here in Benton County, we should come together and ordain that the Bill of Rights is the law of the land.
30 seconds, Mr. Lade.
Not a resolution that we would agree to the Bill of Rights, but an ordinance declaring that these are the laws of the land in this county and as such are inviolate. We need to refresh our collective memory of what America is, why she is great, and that these enumerated laws are hers. They belong to no other nation on earth. To fail to ordain these as the law of the land, our land, is to fail the oaths of office that you took.
Thank you, Mr. Legg. Your
Thank
time's
you.
up.
Who's next? Please come forward.
My name is Michael Battenfield. I live in Heifel. And I'll be brief. Well, nobody that knows me will agree. First and foremost, we do not live in a democracy. I remember hearing that as a child and then finding out in civics class that no, we're in a representative republic. And there's a difference because we do not operate by mob rule. We do not claim that the majority says something when in fact it does not. I'm also reminded daily as I complain regularly, and anybody knows me knows I do, about the system. And we're now being told we have to begin at the local level. And now we hear that, oh, that's a federal issue, that's a state issue. No, we must begin by taking a stand at the local level. The courts are supposed to be a remedy for unconstitutional rules. Unfortunately, that's only available to those who have the financial resources to pursue it to that length. We are witnessing other rights being exercised right here in this room this evening that are protected in that same Bill of Rights. Are we going to label this as a gun ordinance, as a gun protection, as a gun sanctuary? No, we are saying all of our enumerated rights are important. But that brings us to, again, that argument of ordinance versus resolution. And we all know that resolutions have no teeth. I had a conversation with Mr. Rainwater of 38 minutes last week. He was a little upset that I had called him out publicly. And so he reached out to me, I called him back, and we had a 38-minute conversation that basically was him saying, I just think this is going to be making the county claiming to be sovereign. That's not what it does. It simply says we're not going to be part and parcel to enforcing unconstitutional laws. And in researching it, what I've come to the realization of is that I believe his interest is more along the lines of not allowing what was mentioned earlier, this window for citizens to have recourse without having to have all the financial resources to go through all the court systems. That if the county says we're going to enforce, then the citizen says we've got this mechanism that you passed as an ordinance that says no, and here's your avenue to deal with us locally.
1 minute, Mr.
And so I would simply encourage you to consider this in the form of an ordinance. Therefore, we as citizens have that right of redress locally, where we're being told regularly is our standing point. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Wayne Fugere. I live in Rogers. And I want to say I'm a member of the NRA, been in the military, took the oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. This ordinance, I don't believe fits that. Everybody's talking about whether laws are constitutional or not constitutional, and we have a mechanism in this country to make that determination. And no, nothing against you fellas and ladies, but I don't think you're the people that decide whether a law is constitutional or not. So I'm for the Bill of Rights 100%, but I'm against this ordinance or this resolution as it's written. Thank you.
I've already signed in. Michael Buckner, Sandy Springs. I spent 21 years in the military as a combat medic and a trauma nurse. I spent 20 years in organ transplantation. I know full well the effects of gun violence. I know full well how a bullet will go straight through a protective order and how a bullet will go straight through any red flag laws. I think red flag laws are a violation of 6 of the 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights. And I fully support and defend the Constitution of the United States when it comes down to the Second Amendment. there's 4 words in there, shall not be infringed. And we see it being infringed on a daily basis from around the country. Left, right, it doesn't matter. Politicians are infringing on our rights. I don't think anybody should be demanding that they have that they take my right away from carrying a weapon, just as I can't demand that they will carry a weapon. It's in the Bill of Rights, it's in our Second Amendment. I fully support being a sanctuary county because that at least puts a little bit of teeth in the fact that we will not be afraid to stand up and say, these are my rights. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none. George, before we get into discussion, can you kind of give us an overview?
This initially came to me after a committee of the whole meeting in January. It was forwarded to me. I wasn't at that meeting. It was my understanding that it had been passed out. And that is a version of the Bill of Rights Sanctuary Ordinance that has COW written at the top of it. I will tell you the first time I read it, and several times until very recently actually, I didn't have the whole thing. So I kind of had an initial reaction to it, that it was incomplete in some way. And that led me to draft a resolution which you have before you. It's the one-page resolution. There are a number of things in the ordinances which were presented which concern me. One of the JPs called me today and raised an issue in a little different way that I'd already seen, and talked because there's some material in here about jointly and severally liable, and neither sovereign nor official or qualified immunity shall apply. And I cannot imagine why this court would want to give up any of that. I'm not sure you legally can, but I don't know why you would voluntarily want to do that. There was just a concern expressed to me about the potential for this to just create a lot of litigation. And I think there is some potential for that. There is a portion of this ordinance that refers to new employment contracts and how those would not be, that'll have a particular clause in it. Of course, we don't have employment contracts, never have, and I want to be very clear. We're an at-will county, and we're going to remain an at-will county. There's a provision in here about anyone may enforce this ordinance, and that kind of gives me concern just from the point of view of what exactly does that mean? Does that mean there are some violation provisions in here? Does that allow people to make arrests? There is such a thing as a citizen's arrest. I just don't know that we want to go to that point. There is some material in the ordinance about violation of the ordinance being just cause for termination of employment. I think you could say that, but then it says any employee of Benton County found to be in violation of this ordinance shall have their employment immediately terminated for cause. As I think all of you know, you cannot direct Betsy Harrell as the county clerk. You cannot direct the sheriff as to who to employ or not to employ. When I first read through this first of the ordinances, I was concerned because it appears to give kind of free range to some things that I'm not sure are all that solid. But going back and looking at it now, they did something in the ordinance which I did in my resolution, where I said we support law. Some of this material in here says we limits the lawful use of firearms, which, you know, I can see that.
I sent you a copy of a portion of the Arkansas Code, and the part is highlighted is you can't do anything, you're prohibited from passing any legislative act contrary to the general laws of this state. Now, I think what they're saying is these are the general laws of this state and this nation. I don't know how that will continue. One of the things that is brought up in some of this material is about open carry. Open carry is a fairly recent concept where that's become, as a result of an attorney general's opinion interpreting a statute, something that's pretty common. The legislature, I don't know that they wouldn't be able to reverse that trend if they wanted to. I'm not suggesting that they will. I think we're a far cry from Virginia. Now, I have prepared a resolution, and I suggest if you want to pass something, you pass it. By the way, the reason I prefer it over Mike Rainwater's lengthy resolution is I'm a little concerned that Rainwater's lengthy resolution is confusing. Number one, it's long, and it says, in section 3, it says, will be treated as void and therefore unenforceable in the county. And they're confusing language that would go in an ordinance with language going in a resolution. I guess the thing that concerns me most, and the reason I want to keep it simple, is I don't want any citizen, and I certainly don't want any sheriff's deputies to be put in any kind of danger because they're trying to interpret this or somebody else is trying to interpret this. It needs to be clear and concise, in my opinion, and the resolution that I've proposed is that. I understand that there's folks out there who think, well, we're retreating and there's not enough teeth there. I understand. I understand why people feel their rights are under assault. It's not just Second Amendment rights that people feel are under assault. There's people who feel like their First Amendment rights to free speech, their First Amendment rights to freedom of religion are under assault. There's a lot of that going on in this country. Frankly, a lot of it's probably being hyped up by the media because they're trying to sell soap. So I would encourage you to, if you're going to pass anything, to consider the resolution that I have drafted, not the lengthy one that Rainwater put together. I also want to remind you that doing nothing is a live option. You cannot do anything to expand or restrict the Second Amendment or the Declaration of Rights in the Arkansas Constitution. You do not have that power. Any questions?
Mr. Snow?
This proposed ordinance and the Bill of Rights, how would that apply to other issues such as prayer? We have a prayer at the beginning of our Quorum Court meeting. How would that apply?
Would it apply to restrict it? Once again, I don't think you can do anything to either increase or decrease the rights guaranteed in the United States Constitution and the Declaration of Rights of the Arkansas Constitution. So from a legal point of view, I'm not sure it would do anything. Now, would it give somebody something to hold and go to court and wave around and take a bunch of time? Yeah, might.
Well, also I heard a lot of passionate expressions tonight about the Second Amendment. I am a supporter of the Second Amendment. I am a gun owner, a gun trader, and I don't know that. I just don't feel like that there is anything that needs to be done. I realize that people feel like that their rights are being encroached on, and I know in a lot of areas they are. How long is it going to be before it gets to this part of the country? I don't know. And what's going to happen when it gets to here? Benton County is changing. The demographics of Benton County is changing. So a lot of things are going to change in Benton County over the next few years. But I know one of the statements that was made about the financial ability to pursue resources. This particular ordinance, if I understand it correctly, requires financial resources to pursue the penalty section of this ordinance. It requires a civil action, which means if somebody is going to pursue the penalty section of this ordinance, they're going to have to retain an attorney and file litigation to pursue the penalty. And then that litigation is going to have to be heard in the presence of a court, the presence of a judge, who is going to make a ruling as to whether that complaint is valid or not. And based on what I have read and basically what you have said, is that there's a good probability that most any judge is probably going to declare any action unconstitutional.
I can't judge that until I actually see what the action is. I think probably, and to be fair, I think probably their concerns are that if you get up into the courts where it is perceived you need to go for some of the actions about violation of rights, that you've got to have a lawyer. I, being part of the union, of course, always recommend that you have a lawyer. But I think probably the perception is that this ordinance will allow you to do things in either local court or probably district court, and that would be somehow superior in their judgment. I'm not trying to speak for them. I am trying to be fair to them. I think they just perceive that they could go into district court on their own, where we have a small claims procedure, and somehow that might be better for them. That's once again, that's my perception. So,
well, it's not going to simply be the you got a violation, and that violation is going to be reported to someone, and that violation is going to be dealt with. That's not the case. It's going to require litigation to pursue that penalty. Is that not correct?
You're going to have some sort of proceeding, yeah.
So again, you're back to the financial ability of the person making the complaint or pursuing that penalty.
Probably so, yes.
I know. I personally, I've received probably 15 phone calls from individuals regarding this ordinance, and all 15 have been not in favor of the ordinance. But by the same token, if you try to engage that person who is making that complaint about the ordinance, if you try to engage them in any conversation regarding gun control, they don't want to hear it. They don't even want to talk about it. They have no concept of gun control or any concept of the understanding that we already have gun control. We have more gun control than it can possibly be dealt with. We have gun control for just about anything and everything. Look at the states, the cities that have strict gun control. In Chicago, for instance, they've had they have 40 or 50 shootings or killings every week, and they have one of the strictest gun control legislations in the country. So, as I said, the people, they have no concept of gun control. I don't see that this ordinance or anything pertaining to it or even a resolution is going to actually resolve or settle anything. That's my opinion.
Anybody else? Justice Myers?
Yeah, George, on the ordinance on COW at the top, under the Article 2, the unlawful acts, it appears to me, and I'm not an attorney, that many of these are like, number one, any tax levy. Would that mean sales tax also? Or, I mean, this seems to be full of things that violate state laws, state ordinances, federal, and the whole thing, not the whole thing, but a number of these appear to be in direct conflict to the laws that are currently on the books, both state and federal.
That's one way to read it, certainly. I don't know that they intended it that way. Maybe they did, but it's written that way. Yeah.
Words are better than intent.
Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, the whole thing, if we were to consider adopting this ordinance, we'd have to really put this on hold to go just the Article 2 alone and clean it up so we're not in violation of any state or federal act, law, or anything else. So with that, I don't see where we can even begin to consider passing this tonight.
I know not only, at least the way I read this, it purports not only to if there are changes in the law in the future, then I think this is trying to nullify it. And I'm troubled by that. I just don't think this is the body to deal with that. If you want to raise a question about your Second Amendment rights and whether they're being violated, I think one place to do that is the courts. The other place to do that is with state and federal legislators who might actually be able to do something about it.
Thank you.
Justice Edwards?
Oh, I think Justice Hobbs.
Justice Hobbs?
Thank you. I do have a question. George, when we swore to uphold our Constitution, were we not, in fact, ordaining the right to bear arms?
Well, I think what you're doing is you're swearing to uphold the rights, including the Declaration of Rights, including the Second Amendment. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And the other question I have, in reference to the legislative act contrary to the general laws of the state, if we were to pass something that went against the Constitution, then in fact we are not upholding the very Constitution we swore to uphold. Is that correct?
Well, one could argue that, certainly. I thought about saying something about that, but I didn't want to lean on that too heavily. Because, if it's something that's arguable, there's some people that would say, well, you're just upholding what's already there, and therefore you're not violating your oath. So, that's a tough call, but I certainly don't think that any of you should vote in any way that you believe is contrary to the federal Constitution, the state Constitution, or the duly passed laws thereunder.
And I guess my last question is, when it states any legislative act contrary to the general laws of the state, and I think this is kind of a preemptive against any red flag laws. So if we do not have red flag laws in place, would that be contrary to this? Does that make sense?
Yeah, what I'm concerned about is if they pass red flag laws in the future, I don't think we can then use an ordinance that we've already adopted to ignore those laws.
So in essence, I'm sorry.
I don't think the sheriff or the judges could do that.
Okay. All right. I had a question, but I lost it. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Edwards?
So I'm always concerned about unintended consequences. So we as a body passed an ordinance allowing employees as well as county officials to carry concealed handguns on county property. We're one of only a handful of counties in the state. We are by far the largest county in the state that allows our employees as well as our elected officials to carry on county property with a concealed, in our case, an enhanced concealed carry. When we passed that, there was a little bit of a compromise back and forth, and we listened to some elected officials with some of their concerns about the ease at which you can get a concealed carry permit, and so we decided to make it an enhanced before you could carry on county property. So our ordinance states that with an enhanced concealed carry permit, county employees and county elected officials can carry. So from time to time, there are people who carry in this room. One of the unintended consequences of making it an enhanced is that county employees that do not live in the state of Arkansas cannot get an enhanced concealed carry permit. It's impossible. And so those county employees that live in Missouri and Oklahoma cannot carry on county property or at their own place of employment because of the ordinance we wrote. That does two things. One, it gives you a little bit of background of where this court has taken a position on concealed carry and gun rights in the past, and it also shows you that sometimes we do things that have unintended consequences. There were a lot of people tonight who were probably a little frustrated that they weren't able to carry into this building. There were some people who probably intended to carry into this building until they discovered a metal detector and a bunch of deputies. I understand that. So the issue is many of those people would also believe that that is an infringement on their Second Amendment rights. Okay? There's a very clear Arkansas law that says it is state, county, city property, and you can't carry. So if we pass this ordinance, giving it teeth, then an individual who could try to carry into this county building and get stopped by one of our law enforcement officers could claim that their Second Amendment rights are being violated. My fear with this ordinance, and the fear that I've expressed numerous times, is that it is going to be up to the interpretation of any individual of whether we're violating their rights or not. If I cut you off at 3 minutes, I'm violating your First Amendment rights to free speech. If I don't let you carry in this county business because I'm obeying state law, then I'm violating your Second Amendment rights. If I talk about God in a prayer or in a pledge of allegiance, then I may, if you're on the other side of the aisle, violate your freedom of religion because I'm enforcing a religion on you that accepts a God and you don't believe in any gods. All of those things in an ordinance signed by this county and the way it's written would allow that individual, especially since it would waiver sovereign immunity, to sue either the elected official who they deemed would be responsible, whether that's the sheriff, whether that's the county judge, the county clerk, or whoever they thought would be the county official, or an individual employee. So my fear, number one, is that we are opening up to both sides of this equation, Second Amendment supporters, as well as people on the other side of the aisle who may think the statue downtown is a violation of their rights because it's a discriminatory symbol and it prevents them from enjoying free enjoyment. And so their right to assemble in our county square is somehow offended. It literally opens up to whatever offends you, you can bring to us, skip sovereign immunity, and sue us. Okay? And this is my number one concern about this ordinance. I understand the desire, and I appreciate the desire. Arkansas is a constitutional carry state. Open carry is accepted and is the law of the land, as well as constitutional carry. But there are quite a few gray areas. There are people who've had conversations with me tonight that I pointed out laws that they didn't realize existed. There are people who point out things to me all the time on the laws that I didn't realize existed and that I had wrong. Okay? My fear, and I'm going to stop lecturing and shut up in a minute, and everyone knows I talk too much, but my fear is that we are opening ourselves up to a host of not trivial, because to that individual they're incredibly important, but we're going to open ourselves up to a host of issues related to individuals, for whatever reason, who seem to be offended, bringing lawsuits against us, and by bypassing immunity, they have some recourse to take us to court, whether that's an individual JP who on Facebook decided to block them, or whatever it may be, because I just violated their First Amendment right. So that's my concern with an ordinance. I fully support a resolution, even though it's non-binding, because I think it sends a message. And I think if our state passed a red flag law tomorrow, and you came forward at the next committee of the whole meeting, you'd have a half a dozen JPs passing an ordinance not to enforce that red flag law. Okay? I absolutely think we'd pass it. This opens us up. It's too broad and it's too general, and that's my opinion.
Justice Allen?
I'll be brief, but I want to, since I was mentioned, I guess, read the paper or something. I try not to read the paper anymore. And I ain't here tonight, by the way. Somebody said that Tom Allen wasn't present. I don't have a nameplate, but I guess that's my status on the court now. I don't get a nameplate. Oh, there it is.
You missing something?
This is a critically important issue. It's important to everybody. I'm glad that everybody's here to participate. We've talked many times about the fact that we need to get our citizens more engaged in what we do in the county, the cities as well, and certainly the state and federal level. So thank everybody here, those of you that are on both sides of the issue, thank you all for being here, for expressing your passion, your concerns, and I'll tell you, both of you are making great points. Both sides are making great points. I really admire you people for stepping up here and talking and telling us what's on your heart. I'm a gun owner as well. I used to be a NRA member, but I think I'll let it lapse. I'll probably join later, but so I don't want to lie and say I am now, but I have been several times, and I'll let it lapse and I'll join again. I have a concealed carry permit as well, and own several guns, and I firmly believe in the right to bear arms. I firmly believe that we should have the right to do that. I'm with several of you that made the comments that I'm not going to stand by idly if somebody was to approach me with the federal government or state government or even county government that would try to take my guns from me. It won't be easy. They'll have to fight me for it. I firmly believe in that. However, I believe that this is not the place to enact legislation. We have a strong Second Amendment. We have great language in our state constitution that protects our right to bear arms. And it's as simple as that. I think we need to put our attention towards our federal officials, to any judge that might rule otherwise, to any, whether it be a president, whether it be Congress, senators, whatever it might be, and the same with our state. That's where we need to have our focus, is because that seems to be where we're being lazy in not enforcing our laws. I know the state of Virginia apparently has done something there, and I keep waiting for the Department of Justice or whoever it is, George, you know who it is, somebody in the federal level is going to step in at some point and say that's unconstitutional. I'm very sure of that. But it's not the Quorum Court's responsibility. It just simply isn't, and I just think it's the wrong thing for us to be doing for many reasons that I think outweigh the other reasons that have been brought up here tonight. So I think that everybody's energized, and that's a good thing, but I think you need to be directing your attention towards those on a higher level of government, such as the United States government and maybe even our state government.
Justice Adams.
I've sworn an oath in 1990.
Speak up, please.
You speaking into your mic?
I was.
Okay.
Huh?
Sit down.
Got a red light.
Huh.
Here,
There we go.
1990, I swore an oath when I became a member of the Benton County Sheriff's Department I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Arkansas. In that, we have all the Bill of Rights. I read it, I understood it. I tend to shoot from the hip, pardon the pun, sometimes, on these things. I think we need to have a voice, something, resolution or ordinance or something, stating that even though we can't make and enforce a law here separate from the state or the federal law, I think our legislators that actually make the laws in Little Rock and in Congress need to hear from us down here. Possibly a resolution or an ordinance is a way to keep their attention to where they forget about us down here on this level. Quorum Court is the lowest legislative body in the state and probably in the country. So I put a lot of thought into this, and I've really had some issues with some of the way that the ordinances are written and some of the language. I had more questions than I could get answers for in a short time. I think possibly I would support a resolution reaffirming the fact that I swore an oath to the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of the State of Arkansas, as opposed to try and make something that's perceived as a law when in reality it is not a law. It might make some of us feel good, I'm dead set against the red flag law. There's a couple of things that our governor has proposed and the legislators have proposed that I would not agree with. But to the people in the audience, that's where we have to change the laws. We can't change them here on a local level. If I thought there was a way to get something passed with this, I'd be all for it. But I truly think that the recourse that you as the citizens of Benton County on both sides of the aisle should go to your congressmen, your state legislatures that make those laws. And if they're making a law that you feel contradicts the Constitution of Arkansas, the Constitution of the United States, make it known to them that on November the 3rd, they're going to be out of a job. That's where it needs to happen. I'd like to do something here, but after visiting with George and several other people that are attorneys locally, I don't feel like I could support an ordinance at this time. Possibly, if something happens on the state level, then maybe we could make our voices known a little bit more then. This is a feel-good thing, and I would feel real good if we did something. But obviously, I don't want to do something that's not going to have any teeth to it. So I won't support an ordinance, but I will support a resolution reaffirming our oath to the Constitution.
Justice Snow?
I would make a motion that the ordinance be tabled and that the resolution be referred to the Quorum Court for further handling.
I think that would need to be two different,
Okay.
so
I make a motion that the ordinance be tabled.
okay, motion second on the floor, discussion.
Who's the second?
Justice Myers. Justice Todd?
So I'm not disagreeing with as far as this ordinance being tabled, but I still feel a resolution, which I know we'd be making a statement, but I mean, that's really all the resolution would be. Is there any reason that we couldn't? I don't think that something has to be passed this month. I know we're trying to pass something, get something moved along, but if we had to wait for another ordinance that possibly parallels the state constitution, it sounds like that's a lot of what we're worried about. I have concerns about the language in the ordinance that was presented also. I agree with that, but would it be possible to have an ordinance drafted that, that addresses a lot of the concerns that we heard from this body tonight, instead of just moving forward with the resolution?
George?
That would be my question.
I'll do whatever I'm directed to do. I'll try and draft an ordinance that I think is appropriate. Have a lot of limitations in it, but I can try.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I just think, I know we don't have, we, like it's been brought up, we don't make the laws, that sort of thing. It would be an ordinance. However, we do have a say-so in county funds, we do have a say-so in county property, the things that those things can be used for. I'm not disagreeing with tabling this ordinance, but I'm just wondering about moving forward with the resolution.
I want to say you do have a say in the use of county funds. You do have a say in the use of county property, but I'd be cautious about the way you try to exercise that. I think ultimately, for example, the sheriff has a duty to support the Constitution of the United States, support the Constitution of the state of Arkansas, and if you appropriate money for him for whatever reason, that is his overriding mission. If you somehow tried to limit it, if we're able to come up with something that stays within the borders of those documents, and maybe we can, I'll do the best I can, then that'd be fine. But I just want to caution you and remind you that the county officials are elected officials. You appropriate their budgets, and as far as limiting them too much or directing them too much, I think that would be a problem.
Justice Shiako?
Thank you. Couple things that I've noticed. So yes, we all swore an oath to the U.S. Constitution and to the Arkansas Constitution. Those are huge to me. I am a first-generation American. My parents immigrated here, and they were from communist countries. So this kind of hits me in a totally different way. What I will say is we've spent more time talking about a Benton County courthouse that doesn't affect us constitutionally. So this deserves way more discussion than just one night. I don't think that any of these should be passed. And George, I would love to talk to you because I think that we could use this resolution, change it into an ordinance, just label it Bill of Rights. All of the Bill of Rights need to be protected, not just the Second Amendment, because the Second protects the First, and we know that. Anyway, so if you want any of my ideas, I've kind of scribbled through your resolution.
I'll be happy to look at your scribble.
Thank you.
Remember, we're discussing the...
Table. Sorry. So I agree with tabling that ordinance. But we need much more discussion.
Right. Justice Allen?
I agree with tabling this as well. I didn't know that he really needed any action. It appears that that ordinance was going to go nowhere. If we were going to discuss an ordinance, I think it would be a different ordinance. And so I'm not sure we need a motion, although if there's one on the floor, and I don't have a problem with tabling this. I agree with Justice Chiacco that it's obvious with the number of people that are here tonight that and many that will be anxious to see what the news reports about it as well that couldn't be here. This is worthy of more than just one evening of discussion. That's very important. It's home with a lot of us here, and I think that I know that our county attorney George Spence is really smart, but I don't think he's a mind reader, and I think that he's probably going to need. Is that fair to say? Or can you read my mind? I sure hope you can read my mind.
But well, you're really smart.
But I think that we need to probably give him some direction through other discourse and debate and conversation, maybe. And then one of us as individual JPs can give him some information, but just to ask him to create something that we might like, that could just make us meet longer and revise it further. That's really not his duty, is to draft up ordinance for us to consider. He needs to be drafting up something that he knows that we desire to see. Is that a fair statement, George?
Well, whatever direction I'm given, I'll do the best I can. But yes, I can't read your minds, and it's really tough when I've got 13 of you here tonight, or 12, because all of you have an opinion. But do the best I can.
Okay, Justice Edwards?
I was just going to say, since this ordinance didn't get presented by anyone tonight, is tabling it appropriate? Usually you table something that's been brought by a JP, we're just simply tabling an agenda item. I have no problem tabling it if that's needed. I thought it was kind of odd that we're tabling something that wasn't brought forward by a JP.
I think it'd be rather symbolic, but
we're in
seeing as we're in a committee, we can do that.
I'm okay with that.
Justice Snow?
If I could just make a couple of comments about my motion. Number one, the Libertarian Party is to be commended for their efforts for what they're trying to accomplish. Their intent was, I think, was great. As I said, we're all concerned about, especially if you're a gun owner, you're concerned about the infringement of our Second Amendment rights. But as a deputy prosecutor used to tell me quite frequently, you can't serve your passions and your best interests at the same time. And I think in a lot of this situation, we're trying to serve our passions rather than what's in our best interest for the county as well as for the people of Benton County. So therefore, the motion to table the ordinance may not be the correct, but since it was brought before the body, then that's my motion to table it.
Justice Smith?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who spoke tonight. It takes an incredible amount of courage to approach that microphone, and every single meeting I longed for people to come up and share their heart with the Quorum Court. I was wondering if there is a mechanism for us to, outside of this, to meet as a committee to work through the different issues, or do we just have to send them to you individually and you put something together? I just love the idea of us springboarding off of each other's ideas. This is something that I'm not as well versed in, and I appreciate the wisdom that those who are bring to the table.
Well, you can have more meetings. You can't meet privately.
No.
You could meet, a smaller group could meet. Any two of you, though, is a meeting at which you need to let Mike Jones know so he can come take notes. But if you want to have more meetings, that's fine. One of the things that was brought up was maybe we shouldn't be in too big a hurry to do this. So maybe we have the luxury of time to do this over a few months when you would have that opportunity to springboard ideas off of each other. But
Yeah.
that's just my thought.
Because I think my concern was just taking something and automatically approving it, and especially since people who are very knowledgeable had certain concerns about certain areas of it. It would give us a chance to get subject matter experts at the table, have those conversations, make sure we have well vetted everything that's in it.
You said you could have subject matter experts at the table. I'm not sure who else you think you're going to bring in. Mr. Rainwater, I've talked to him about this, and Mr. Rainwater said he's not coming up to our meeting. And I said, thanks. So I don't know, at one point there was somebody who mentioned having the Attorney General, somebody from the Attorney General's office. I would discourage that, but it's your quorum court, not mine.
Justice Allen?
I think my comment is probably not appropriate with the motion on the floor, so I probably have to wait until this vote to make my comment.
Okay. Justice Adams?
To table this discussion, does that kill it completely? Or?
Well, you're testing my Robert's Rules knowledge. The general thing is if something is voted down, then you've got to have so many, I think you're going to have two people who are on the other side to resurrect it. But we're never that formal. This will put it aside, and what I've heard is we want to work on something else. So I don't know that it kills the idea, this particular document, other than being instructive a little bit, maybe as to drafting, I think probably won't come back. Did I answer your question, or did I go off in too many directions?
No, I guess my other question would be, to bring this back up, we need two JPs to present it back to the Committee of the Whole or the Quorum Court, or whichever way, if we want to readdress this. Because killing it, it's gone. And the way I understand Robert's Rules, it leaves it out there in no man's land to not be resurrected. That's probably why I
might interrupt.
support.
I think you could, if you submitted it to me and asked me to put it on the agenda, I would generally be willing to.
That's within the realm of.
As I said, under Robert's Rules, if you lay something on, there is a method to bring it back off the table. I don't have that right in front of me right now, but there is a method. But the other thing I would say is we're generally pretty informal, and absent somebody really wanting to come out and have a Robert's Rules discussion, which I hope we don't have. I suspect they let you get back into it.
Okay. Well, that was just a concern I have with putting it to bed tonight. When the feel I get from the rest of the court is it's not ready to be put to bed yet. It needs to be readdressed. So I'll probably vote against tabling this at this time.
Justice Myers?
Yeah, this motion to table is for this particular document. It had nothing to do with Second Amendment or red flag laws that were strictly for this amendment, it would kill this amendment ordinance, but it would have nothing to do with the future or a follow-on ordinance. So therefore, I call for the question.
Okay. Now, what we are, to make sure I understand, we are tabling the one that says COW public comments on top of it? Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So all in favor of tabling, pardon me?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Microphone.
Thanks, Tom.
All in favor of tabling the ordinance I just held up that says COW 1-21-2020 public comments? That's on the screen. Raise your hand. Count.
Okay.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, how do we want to proceed? Justice Allen?
This is what I was going to mention, and I realized that would have been out of order because we had a motion, but listening to Justice Smith made me think that as opposed to having the committee of the whole meet every time, we could, I believe the Quorum Court can the Quorum Court pick a subcommittee of this issue, and if they choose to have a leader or a chair, and they could meet, and a group of 5 of them, or however many of them, then they could meet and then report to the committee of the whole once they get some kind of consensus.
The judge would have to do that.
I think the quorum court could create a committee and then the judge appoints the members.
I don't know that that's necessary, but it might be in this case. It would,
Yeah, the only concern I'd have is everybody's gonna wanna be on the committee.
I don't want to be on it. Matter of fact, my motion would be that I'm not on that committee.
Okay, who else had their hand up? Justice Adams?
The fact that we've tabled document titled COW 1-21-2020, there's still the resolution that was presented, that George had presented to us. I don't know that I would be in favor of moving on that tonight, being as there's a lot of questions left to be answered. So is that something that we can just move to another meeting, or do we need to do away with it and start all over again with it?
Well, I really think you're talking about the overall topic. If you're not gonna move anything forward to the quorum court tonight, basically what I think you'd be doing is putting off for the next committee of the whole meeting, further discussion and ideas. And you've got a set of documents in front of you with ideas. I might be able to try and craft something else. I'll certainly give it the old college try. But, basically what you'd be doing is putting it off for a month to another meeting. Unless I guess the other option, what Mr. Allen is suggesting, is there could be a motion that you forward to the quorum court the proposal to appoint a special committee to address this, which Mr. Allen doesn't want. So.
Justice Snow?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of comments tonight about the United States Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Arkansas. And I think we've all agreed that in one form or another, whether it be in the military service or whatever, we've sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States as well as the Constitution of the state of Arkansas. If we've sworn to uphold that Constitution, we either do or we don't. You can't say I uphold the Constitution of the United States, but I don't like this particular section of it. So therefore, I want to kick that section out. I only was going to support this part of the Constitution. Same way with the state of Arkansas. As we have sworn to uphold the Constitution of the state of Arkansas, then we either do or we don't. To say that this particular section, I don't like that, so we're not, basically the same thing happened. Some of the people in the audience not aware of that particular situation, but the city of Bella Vista, or the Bella Vista Property Owner Association, just had an election not too long ago, and that election was voted down. Then the board of directors says, hey, I didn't like the results of that election, so we're just going to have another one, and we're going to stack the deck this time and see why it turns out. Well, it turned out the other way. So you got the same thing with the Constitution. We either agree with it or we don't. And if we don't agree with it, then we need to make efforts to change the Constitution, not take a stand against a part of it. So either, again, we do or we don't. And if creating an ordinance violates the Arkansas Constitution, then we don't need to create an ordinance.
Justice Allen?
I move that we put on the agenda for the Quorum Court for a matter of discussion, a subcommittee to discuss this issue.
Motion second on the floor. Discussion to the motion. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, like sign. Okay. Do we have any more business to come before this committee?
Move
Not
adjourned.
Well, we've got to open it back up.
Oh, I'm
for
sorry.
public
That's
comments. Okay. We're opening the floor back up to public comments. Same rules apply.
Did you skip announcements?
Pardon me?
Did you skip announcements?
We're going to have announcements. Anyone wishing to come forward?
How's you guys doing? So I listened to your discussion. It's pretty good. No one's going to accuse any of you guys of heresy or anything like that. But the Constitution's been around for over 250 years. Constitutional carry has been, it's not a recent thing. It's not a recent development. There's nothing new about it. It's as old as time. The turn of the tides is now. The time to start a revolution is already among us. Every other county in America is going to be a sanctuary county within a couple of years. It's just the way things are moving. Things are moving awfully quickly right now. Everything's heated up. Everyone's heated up. I understand there are strong emotions, strong passions we can apply to. But I guess that's all I was going to say.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
Just write my name down, take off my 3 minutes. Okay, good. All right.
Just signal us when you're ready to start.
Glenn Latham, Gentry, Arkansas. I think most of y'all know me. I just wanted to say I was actually encouraged that Tom finally showed up. But no, I'm kidding. I was actually encouraged by you guys' discussion tonight. I didn't have a chance to read the whole ordinance, but I do think you made a good choice in coming back and looking at that. I know I can't suggest anything to you, George, but you might look at the Scott County one. I think it kind of covers what Michelle was talking about. But really encouraged by you guys. I know some of you guys I'm going to miss. Pat, I'm going to miss you a lot. You've always
You
got
guys going somewhere?
some good comments when you're here. But you guys are really taking a good approach to it. Dustin, I was glad to hear you actually speak up tonight in favor of that since you're my JP. So I just wanted to thank you guys really for actually looking upon it and not just coming out and going, hell no, I'm against it, or hell yeah, I'm for it. I mean, that was a really good discussion. I sat back there. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but Tom decided to show up, so I figured I would too. Thank you guys.
Anybody else? Judge?
Just for clarity, since I was in the back, since usually I can sit anywhere I want, But tonight, I didn't have that opportunity. I just want to make sure on the appointment of the subcommittee, I didn't hear exactly, was there any discussion about the makeup of the subcommittee, the number of members?
We were going to talk about that at the Quorum Court, I believe.
Okay, all right, so it'll just be a discussion item at the Quorum Court, we'll decide that there?
Correct.
Okay.
I can't be a member of
The chairman. I think you deserve to be chair. Yes, I do. Okay, I just wanted that clarity, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to address this body? Okay, seeing none, announcements?
Yay.
I just wanted to announce the early voting total for today. We had 1,264 voters total. The Election Commission in Rogers led the way with 281. My office came in second with 201. So come on, Bentonville folks. Come on up. And I just wanted to remind everybody, this is more than a primary. This is not just parties choosing their candidates for the November election. There are 3 cities who have sales tax issues on their ballots. There are 3 school boards who are electing school board members, and we are electing 3 judges in Benton County. We are voting statewide on a Supreme Court justice with an 8-year term. This is their election. This is not a preliminary for the November ballot. We have a state district court judge that is countywide and a brand new circuit court judge position. So do your research, get out and vote. If you don't care about party politics, come get a nonpartisan ballot. Vote.
All right. I'll entertain, any other announcements? Mr. Crowe, I'd entertain a motion.
You got it.
And